All right. Thank you, Mike. All right. It's not. It is 3 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Phil Lustig, and I'd like to welcome everyone, Rotarians, Rotaractors, and from all the Rotary districts and guests who are with us today. Before we start, there's some details on how we'll conduct this webinar. The webinar will be in English. For translated captions, please click on the Captions tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen and choose the language that you choose to have captioned. This should come up in whatever language you choose to listen to. I would encourage everyone to rename themselves, keep your name, but add to your name what district you're from if you could. That would really be helpful for us in identifying where people have come from during this screen. We're going to ask people to hold their questions to the end, or you can post them in the chat window. At the end of the session, we're going to have a Q&A session. And Mike, you want to move to the next slide, please? There we go. I'd like to welcome with us today past Rotary International Director Bob Stewart. He's our chair. He's going to welcome us. We're going to have some opening comments from past Rotary International President and the current trustee chair, Barry Rassin. And then we're going to go into some disaster planning framework. We're going to talk about disaster preparedness at zone and region and district clubs, and preparedness for clubs. And I will probably add some comments about preparedness for individuals, and then we'll have a Q&A discussion afterwards. We're hoping to leave about 15 minutes for Q&A, and we would like to hold to an hour, but if we go over that, we'll be fine. And at this time, I'd like to ask Bob Stewart, our chair, for some opening comments, and then he's going to turn it over to Barry Rassin. Bob is a past director from Springfield, Illinois, and I've worked closely with Bob for a few years. So Bob, it's on you.
Thank you, Phil. Yeah, and I'm pleased to see the numbers that we have. DNA RAG is one of 25 Rotary action groups, and it is the disaster network of assistance. And our mission is to be an interactive network of Rotarians, Rotaractors and spouses, and affiliated Rotarians and other groups. We assist with disaster preparedness, communication, and the recovery efforts on a global basis. Our primary focus to this point has been on disaster preparedness or training and communications between affected areas and potential assistance for the long-term recovery. There are some basic principles that we utilize or have developed with DNA RAG, and I'd just like to peruse a couple of these. One, we assist districts, clubs, and individual Rotarians. We're there to listen and facilitate local situations and issues and projects. We're there to help you. The projects that we support and work with are chosen by the local Rotary clubs and districts, and we emphasize using local suppliers and workforce and expertise. We have focused primarily on preparedness and training, along with international coordination and communication. We stress transparency and accountancy, our fiduciary responsibility. We note that There are 24 other Rotary action groups, and we seek to team with these other Rotary action groups. We don't view Rotarians and DNA RAG as a first responder, although individual Rotarians, clubs, and districts do, by virtue of their heartstrings, when they see a disaster, reach out and do participate as first responders. Our focus remains on the long-term recovery of communities. Over the years, I've gotten to know the individual who's going to give the next remarks. And you have individuals that stress their title. This is an individual who has several titles. He's a past Rotary International president and past trustee of the Rotary Foundation. But actions speak a lot more than words and titles. And we're fortunate to be with one of those individuals. Barry Rassin, if you would give us a charge and your thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob. And let me start by saying thank you to Bob and Phil and Mike and your whole team. You've brought the DNA RAG to a new level. And I think it's really important that our Rotary Action Groups get stronger and stronger because I think where you have such a group of our members who are focused on one thing, the possibilities are fantastic. And I appreciate all of you coming here, 23 on the call. I hope we continue to grow, but great to see so many countries involved. You all know how important it is to be prepared. I know because I've been involved in a number of disasters. Hurricanes are what hits us locally. Been through lots of them, worked with some with Bob Stewart and Phil, of course, who also helped me with the earthquake in Haiti. Two totally different types of disasters needing totally different types of preparation. We are now in my country, we're prepared. We know we're going to get hit by a hurricane. We just don't know how hard it's going to hit. But we know it's going to be harder than ever because the water in this part of the world is hotter than it's ever been. It's record heat in the water. When the hurricane comes, a storm comes, it's going to be stronger than we've ever had in the past. You've got to be ready for it when it comes, so you immediately you can jump in and help other people who need help. And I think of Hurricane Dorian. Mike Stafford's on the call from Freeport. His area got hit hard. Mike lost his house, but did he go to his house to fix it up afterwards? No. He went to the Rotary water plant and helped everybody in the area because he knew that was the plan. That's what has to happen. People need water. Not sure he ever got back to his own house because he was giving of himself like we all do as members. But it was the preparation. It was having that water plant there that we've had for a lot of years now. So when there's a hurricane, we know there's no water in the island. Rotary gives water to the entire country. That's preparation. That's long-term preparation. But every club needs to think about how are they going to get ready? What's the disaster that's going to hit your area? Is it fire? Is it earthquake? Is it hurricane? Is it storms? Is it volcanoes? There's more and more happening around the world, and we know that. There is climate change. It's undeniable. We know we're going to lose our reefs, so the environmental issues are a big part of this. As we have stronger hurricanes, we're going to have more issues with our reefs as well. But preparation is key. But I'd also ask you to make sure you're familiar with the newest process for handling disaster grants from the Rotary Foundation. It's changed a lot. And if you're thinking back to the days we used donor advised funds, we could start a new fund for a new disaster and we end business quickly with $10,000 and we can get going and start the marketing to get, we all know that we've got to move quickly if we want to raise funds. Part of your preparation is how are you going to raise funds? How are you going to get out there in the Rotary world and make sure that Rotarians know this is a disaster and you need help with? Well, there is a disaster fund now at the Rotary Foundation. pleased to know that we actually have more than $250,000 in it today. That was actually last week, so it may not be today. But I mean, the disasters keep coming. We've got to keep helping. Having the general disaster fund is good, but in all honesty, Rotarians react to a specific disaster. So we've got to be ready when your area gets hit. How are you going to turn to the Rotary world and ask for help? The disaster fund is certainly one way to go for a
Barry, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know how that got muted.
No problem.
Where was I? So we've got to be ready for our area. How do we jump into that fray quickly? Do you have a disaster committee ready to go? In my country, our disaster committee is there all year. It's about getting ready, so when the day hits, we're ready to go. But the disaster of magnitude is really only for very special disasters that affect a lot of people. But go on the website and learn what the criteria is. Because the beauty of it is that when there is a significant natural disaster, we're able to open a fund quickly. And I say quickly, it's probably 5 days at the Rotary Foundation and tell the Rotary world we could raise funds for that specific disaster. And that raises more funds than any other way because it's a specific place people want to help. And it really works. So we've done it with Morocco, we've done it with Pakistan, but we started late in Pakistan. We've got to start right away. So we didn't do a lot when 3/4 of their country was flooded, but we weren't able to really implement anything for a while because we weren't ready to go. But there are areas we move very quickly, and that's good. In Brazil, the flooding recently, we were able to monitor it from day one. By the 4th day, we knew it met the criteria. By the 6th day, we had a fund. We raised money for Brazil. But that's preparation. We're all ready to go. And one of the beauties is once the district governor locally has signed off on it, and a director and or trustee have signed off on it, they can go to the chair of the foundation. The chair signs off on it. It isn't waiting for any bureaucracy from our staff. Nothing against our staff, okay? I have a great respect for all of them. But if we do that, we can move really quickly. So please be aware of those kind of possibilities where you can get help for your area. It's all about being ready. And that's why I think it's great that you're here today to hear from Phil and Mike. Both had a lot of experience with the earthquake in Haiti. We were able to move fast because working with Bob Stewart, we were able to convert a fund that's already there so we can move, get donations. We raised $6.5 million just for the earthquake response in Haiti. And we, as Bob said, we were there for the long term. We were doing projects for years where other organizations came. We actually call them voluntourists because they're wonderful volunteers who fly into the country, look at what's there and talk about it and leave. Not Rotary. Rotary's there. We're on the ground everywhere. All your countries, we're on the ground and we're there to help. As Bob said, we're not first responders as an organization, but as individuals, I guarantee you, we are first responders. In Florida, we reacted to a disaster so quickly that we got there before the Red Cross. The Red Cross didn't want to open up shop until Rotary had moved out. You know, preparation is about talking to those other organizations in your area who also want to help in a disaster. So we each know where we sit, where do we lie, and what aspect of the disaster can we help with right away and long term. Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, we're still working on that, and that was 2019 it hit us. I think Mike Stafford went a long way to get his island done, but Marsh Harbor in Abaco still has a long way to go. Lots to do. And Rotary, not necessarily through disaster of magnitude or any fund, but Rotary has put $7 million into the disaster response just for Hurricane Dorian. That's just one disaster. But a lot of that was about preparation. We were able, the day after the hurricane, get Rotarians in Nassau to jump on a jet ski to go to Marsh Harbor to help rescue people who were hanging on to trees. We're only 3 feet above sea level. We had 21-foot surge. We weren't ready for that. So we got to think bigger. It's going to happen. It's going to hit us. What are we going to do to be ready? So I'm going to stop babbling and I'm going to pass it on to the experts. I know Phil and Michael do a great job of helping you get some specifics so you know the direction you need to take to be ready for the next disaster that hopefully doesn't, but let's be ready just in case. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking it seriously and making sure that we are ready when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Michael?
Okay, the goals for our webinar today are simple, right? We just want to encourage districts and clubs and even zones and rather wider regional areas to have disaster preparedness goals, to target to be proactive, right, and to prepare in advance. So we want every zone or district or and to have their clubs in a certain strategy of how they would respond to a disaster. Every club within a district must have a disaster plan, right? Each district must have a disaster preparedness committee focused on preparedness, seeking to assist the clubs to have plans. We encourage all Rotarians to have their own individual plans, right? And for the districts to develop in advance a methodology or framework for how they would respond to a disaster. So those are the goals of this webinar today.
In order for DNA RAG, Disaster Network of Assistance Rotary Action Group, to work with within the Rotary family, Michael has said that districts must have, and that's our suggestion, but we would have no one to work with were it not for having a district disaster committee. And usually the district disaster committee is comprised of committees, committee chair, or I'm sorry, club disaster chairs. I always point to District 7020, which is Michael and Barry's district, as the poster child for.
I'm okay. I'm watching this disaster thing.
The poster child for how to do it right. District 7020 has, I think 85% or 90% of their clubs have disaster committees, and they all report to or liaise with their district disaster chair. So that's critically important. We've worked closely this past year with zones 30 and 31 in the Midwest of the United States, and they've really set it up from the top at the zone level, and then within the zone, each district now has a disaster committee, and those committees are supported by club disaster committees. And within the committees, especially at the club and district level, you should have a preparedness subcommittee and a recovery subcommittee. Barry spoke briefly about long-term recovery and mentioned that we're still doing some work after Dorian, and Bob's going to probably make some comments. If not today, he'll certainly make them on Monday at our annual general meeting. But we just finished funding a project in Nepal where they're building a hospital for women and babies after the earthquake in Nepal. And I'm not going to give you a test, but for those who aren't familiar with it, the earthquake in Nepal was 2015. So 9 years out, 9 years after the event, we're still there on the ground. And I hadn't heard that phrase, what is it, disaster tourists or something, but it really is timely. we take a regional disaster management approach. Sometimes it's district, sometimes it's multi-district. And what's really our main consideration is what geographic boundaries. Barry mentioned the flooding in Pakistan. And I did not realize until we were in Houston at the convention, and we were in a breakout session, and there was a lady from Pakistan who raised her hand, and the number she threw out for the number of people who were directly impacted, either had to evacuate or were not living where they ought to because of that flooding, was 40 million people. I mean, that's just startling. I have trouble wrapping my mind around that one. We were working when we talk about geographic boundaries. Last year, we did a webinar for 31 district governors in Brazil. They have a common problem. Now, in southern Brazil right now, they've got terrible flooding. It's not affecting the northern part of the country, but they come together in that geographic region to support one another. One of the things, and we look at the resources we're sharing, critical cooperation. We always look for physical transparency. One of the things that we learned, and I think Bob will agree with this, if you don't get your word out very quickly, the news cycle changes tomorrow. And we saw this after the earthquake in Nepal. It took us too long to get the word out that there was a need. So the quicker we can do it, right now we're working with a subgroup in Kenya. They've had terrible flooding, but the flooding is over. The rainy season ended about 2 weeks ago in Kenya. But that doesn't mean that the need for rebuilding all the stuff that got destroyed by the flooding isn't there. So we're working with them to develop a longer term strategy. And so we have to draft our strategies based on what the regional needs and risk profiles are. And Mike, could you switch to the next slide, please? Or maybe I can do it. Oh, there you go. No, back up. There you go. At the zone level or the region level, if Rotary goes to that direction, that gives oversight for responsibility in disasters, both in the planning side, because Disaster Network of Assistance Rotary Action Group is involved in disaster preparedness. That's the planning side, and in the long-term recovery. And on the planning side, and Michael and I were talking about this earlier this week and then again this morning, we know that there are going to be disasters. We know that there's going to be flooding. And there was a conversation that took place, I think, this week in SRAG, the environmental RAG, about the need to adaptation. And that means learning to build beforehand because you understand that there's going to be a disaster. So at any rate, okay, Michael, if you'd like to move to the, I think I can do that here. Yes, I can. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll take this one.
Here you go, Mike. You're up.
Okay, all right. This is a little segment on preparedness for clubs, either Rotary or Rotaract clubs. It's part of a lot longer discussion, so we'll just go over the highlights tonight of this discussion, right? The best way to respond to a disaster is to think of it beforehand and to have a way you would be prepared, to have a plan in place, and that this plan is known to all your club members. Experience teaches us that no plan is always perfect, and that is why we keep updating these plans every year and incorporating all the learning that we have gotten from previous experiences. A key part of the philosophy is just being prepared and recognizing that we all have each other's backs. We are our brother's keeper, and that together we work primarily as Rotarians to rebuild shattered communities. This graphic here is a graphic from the Irma Maria hurricane disaster response. And this was a photo we very much appreciate it, given to us, and which emphasizes how we as Rotarians respond together. Together, we rebuild. In terms of planning for clubs, right? This is an overview of an approach, and we'll go over the highlights of it here. We can go into the details of preparing the clubs, more details of preparing clubs plan at another webinar devoted to that. But these are just some major steps in preparing those plans. The first step is to identify what sort of risk that you face. These differ from location to location. And after we have a good fix on what our risks are, then we go ahead, start in preparing for how we would respond to these risks, right? We prepare club plans. Very much in there, we identify contact approaches between members within a club. The cell phones will not work, right? We create liaison and collaboration with our emergency responders before the disasters, and we invite them to club meetings so they know us and we know them beforehand. We compile club resources. I think of the districts in Florida with very well done 40-foot containers of just equipment to how they would respond to disasters. That's a good example. We encourage Rotarians and Rotaractors all to individually within their homes to have their own individual and family plans so they can respond and know how to respond. And then with those plans, we test them. We get together in club meetings and say, suppose we have an earthquake now, how would we respond? Let's go through the simulation for a response and test that and improve our plans. Every club and district needs to assess what their risks are. Each area has its own type of risk. In terms of the risks we are concerned with, we assess their potential chance of occurrence, the impact they would cause when they occur, and this is very specific to your club location. It is not the same as other clubs or even within your district. Rotary needs to stay close to work with all government bodies involved in disaster response, international agencies, such as the various UN bodies, the Red Cross, and many more in discussion on what these risks are for our individual areas and how we respond. I've highlighted some things in red because this to my mind, emphasizes the discussions we have had in DNA RAG of these things. I remember discussions in 2019. It was Phil who first raised it. Should we assess pandemics as a risk? And it seemed novel at the time. I'm glad that we decided to, yes, view that as a risk, and we were ready for COVID. More recently, just in the last week or so, if you live in Florida and the Caribbean, we have had heavy rains. There have been floods, mudslides. There is record heat stress projected for much of the US. There are wildfires, and we are seeing sea level rise. So these risks are increasing. And of course, there are the industrial accidents and things that can occur at home, but we need to reflect on what our risks are. A critical thing, in 2021, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change advised us that climate-related disasters will increase, and the word they use, multifold by 2030. Well, this is only 2024, and we see how this has been panning out. Phil?
Mike, I just wanted to point one thing out. We added this week heat to our risk list, and that was in part as a result of a record heat of 50 point something degrees centigrade in New Delhi. It's 127 degrees in New Delhi, India. And if you don't think that that is a risk, you need to check what risk really means. I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to jump in there, but this list is dynamic. As Mike said, we changed this list in 2018 or 19 to add pandemics. People thought I had 3 heads when I suggested it. And then here we went with COVID, and now we're dealing with unprecedented heat around the world. So, and I don't know about where you all live, but how many records are you breaking every week for new heat records? So, sorry, Mike, still on you.
Excellent, Phil. Excellent. Okay. We do a lot of action. Rotarians are people of action, and we're prepared. There's a conceptual framework of how we think of these various actions. There's stuff that we do before disasters. There's stuff that we do when a disaster occurs, and long after the disaster, there's actions that Rotarians are doing, and we tend to group our activities in terms of this framework, knowing that Rotary has a very long and impactful history of helping communities in disasters. Phil, you want to speak about Rotary?
Yeah, I do. I certainly do. This is one of my real hot buttons. Within your district and zones, your senior leaders really need to buy into getting prepared now. I don't know how frequently I've heard of instances where, well, we went and they wouldn't let us in. Well, they wouldn't let you in because you didn't have a relationship with the disaster preparedness, governmental disaster preparedness organization. Some districts, and I'm not going to point any fingers, but my poster child for doing it right, District 7020, part of their district dues goes to a disaster fund, so that they don't have to wait in the event of something vile happening in their disaster. They've got money sitting on deposit waiting for a disaster. That's pre-planning. You need to have a focus regionally on how to do it and who you need to work with. In our state, we have a very robust disaster preparedness organization. Our counties are very well prepared. There was a mistake made on the west coast of Florida about, I forget whether it was which hurricane it was, but they had all their equipment in a hangar that collapsed on top of all their equipment in a hurricane. That was not too smart. And then you need to have your preparedness committee at the district level. Michael had mentioned the first responder stuff that we don't do organizationally as Rotary, but within Rotary, there are organizations like Disaster Aid USA, Disaster Aid. Well, within Rotary, there's Disaster Aid. And did I do that? No. Wait a minute. Yeah. But we in Florida, we have disaster aid trailers, and they're in Louisiana and Alabama. And if a disaster hits, those are deployed either in our own districts or in other districts to help that impacted area recover from whatever has hit them. And when we talk about partners, it's within Rotary, outside of Rotary, and our Rotary partners. And you should have within your grasp a complete listing of all the things. And one of the things that's not listed here, and it's my real hot button, is being prepared personally at your home. Out in my garage, I have a cabinet, and in that cabinet there are lanterns, which I don't need because I have a whole house generator, but we have a disaster radio in case TV and the cable go out. We have I have life straws. I have a Sawyer filter, so that if we need to clean water, we can do that. I can clean 1 million gallons of water with one of my Sawyer filters. You need to have just Pelican boxes to put your important papers in. If you've never done an inventory of your house, walk around your home with your phone on, record, and make a video of all this stuff in your house. Put that on a flash drive and keep it in a waterproof container. That's how you prepare for the worst. So, some of the partners, and I did mention Disaster Aid, but we work with Team Rubicon, Shelter Box in the Caribbean. We work with Sedema, which is like FEMA in the US, Aquabox, and there are a bunch of others that we work with. Mike, it's on you. During.
Okay, during the disaster, PRP Barry raised a question about the example of Dorian, right? It's very important to convene a disaster-specific committee of all the senior leadership in your district. These are where I see all my past district governors coming out. In the case of Dorian, those meetings began 2 days before the hurricane actually struck, right? Rotarians just waiting and watching and getting prepared. During the disaster, we coordinate on the ground, and we have regional coordinators in every area. Communications will certainly not be good, and we use those coordinators to help inform us of what's happening in their regions, and so we can coordinate external parties. The district can help. It's necessary to activate fundraising promptly. The example of the recent Haitian earthquake, which happened at 8:25 on Saturday morning, right? The fundraising was activated by 4 p.m. on a website that very afternoon, right? And the districts assist in channeling help through the local clubs in need, coordinating contacts with external parties or Good Rotary Family and others. And the district also helped very much in keeping track of those many calls and contacts, pledges of assistance, well wishers, right? And we have a coordinated database to just compile all that information so we can all share from. Phil, after the disaster.
All right. Well, after the disaster, we need to continue our relationships with the organizations that we've worked with. We need to figure out how we're going to help the clubs. I know that after Katrina, one of the problems was that the district leaders in the impacted area couldn't be reached because their communication lines were completely down. So we had to work with district leaders from adjoining districts. In the Caribbean, I know this having worked with the clubs in the Caribbean, they have communication trees within their own districts, within their own clubs. I don't know in many cases if that would work for clubs in the US. I live 18 miles from where our club meets, and there are people who live another 10 miles north of me and people who live 10 miles south of where our club meets. So you're not going to walk over to your neighbor's house and say, how are you doing? And expect to find a fellow Rotarian. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't walk over to your neighbor's house and find out how they're doing, because that's part of working within our communities as good Rotarians. We have to be able to move supplies. And I giggle when I talk about this a little bit because during Irma, we positioned supplies in St. Croix to move them after Irma went. And unfortunately, we didn't know that Maria was going to hit St. Croix, where we positioned all the supplies 5 days later, or whatever it was. So, and one of the things that we have learned over the years, especially in the Caribbean, is that when hurricanes hit, one of the parts of the infrastructure that's usually impacted most heavily is the port. So we have to be very careful about making sure we can get in and out of ports, and because otherwise you're not going to move stuff. We saw that with Dorian. Getting stuff into Grand Bahama wasn't hard because on West End it wasn't as badly affected as East End, but getting stuff over to Abaco was probably nearly impossible because there was no way to land stuff over there. The next point of making sure we channel financial help to the clubs, we have a methodology within DNA RAG using our 501c3 to help clubs, but the financial responsibility really rests with the district disaster committee to identify projects, approve projects, and then tell DNA RAG if funds have been collected for that to send the funding. And we will do that with our 501c3. And that's also has to do with making sure that the proper stewardship and reporting is done. We have an app that we use for that, and it's really robust. It allows us to track projects from their concept to their completion. And during that period from concept to completion, we can follow and track activity. People on the ground can do reports, file them on the spot, upload them on a phone or a tablet. That would then be that information is then time-stamped and geolocated so we know where it took place. They can take photographs and upload them, and they are time-stamped and geolocated so we know what information was recorded and where it was and what it meant. And that helps with getting timely and accurate reporting in, because we require stewardship reporting at the beginning, in the middle, and the end of every project, so that we have complete transparency as to what happened to the funds that were given on behalf by Rotarians or people outside of Rotary to make sure that those projects got done properly. And then we have to figure out what we've done right and what we haven't done right. Barry will tell you that we learned some hard lessons after the 2010 earthquake in Haiti about what you can do to negatively impact a marketplace. The best intentions, and I'm channeling my mother, but she used to tell me that the road to hell was paved with them. So it's sometimes we have to learn by experience what not to do as well as what to do. And then finally, and this leads back into something that our current president, Gordon McAnally, has talked about, is the psychological impact on victims and rescue and relief workers. I had a terrible experience myself, and I didn't realize when I lived through 3 Mile Island, my office windows overlooked the cooling towers at 3 Mile Island in Middletown, Pennsylvania. And I never realized that there was any impact on me until many years later. And I was watching the results of the tsunami in Fukushima at the Sunday plant. And I had probably as close to PTSD as anybody ever wants to get without getting it. I really freaked out. It was not a pleasant experience because it brought me back to a time when things were not working very well. So you have to be very careful about your relief workers from your club and your district, and make sure that they have good psychological help after a disaster. Mike?
Okay, Phil, you mentioned the activities after a disaster. Let's just consider the scenario. A section of the district, several clubs have been hit hard. The district is there trying to assist. And the district, there are many moving parts in this. There's information flowing, there's a difficult situation, right? The district is trying to help the clubs respond. We think of a life cycle of these projects. On the left-hand side, the local clubs who are impacted, they're considering what their needs are and assessing what are the opportunities that Rotary could do. Those clubs decide on what they want to do. Then they seek support from external parties. The district is the nearest support. These clubs will submit a request, and we try and structure it very much so it's can be easily evaluated by a lot of people and friendly, right? And those clubs submit their projects to the district for review. The district in the second box has this district review committee that's reviewing all these projects. The clubs are submitting them. The clubs are compiling them. The entire district team can see everybody sings out of the same hymn book in terms of information, what the clubs are doing. So the districts can be reviewing them, assisting the clubs to fulfill all the requirements for application of the project in a helpful, supportive role. Once those projects have been reviewed, the entire district committee signs off and is happy with it, then funds can be provided directly to the clubs or through some intermediate. The district is ensuring that we're keeping track of all this record keeping of projects, of where they are, the responses, the reports, the offers for help. The district continues to monitor mouse slipped.
Here.
Okay, thank you. The district continues to monitor the project implementation. This may take some while, may take years. Typically, one minute, I think my PowerPoint just collapsed. Let me, if you have it up, Phil. I can give me a second.
Let me see if I think I have it up. Let's see, share. Well, I'll be there in a second.
So I think I've gotten it up here. Right, I think.
Are you bringing it up?
Yeah, I think let me just.
Okay.
Sorry about it.
If not, I can.
Right, okay.
You got it?
Right, got it, okay. So projects are being implemented. The clubs are providing the routine updates on what's happening in their projects. Project closeout is always an area that takes a lot of, as you know, a lot of focus to make sure that we actually complete our stewardship reporting. This is oftentimes the difficult part of a project, right? Making sure we have the reporting, the receipts for all the expenditures, all the documentation, that we can really assess and be sure that we have met our goals. We have met what the community needs to be doing. We have sustainable projects that are achieved, you know, within the parameters of time and budget that they were doing, and we can show the world what we did with the funds and the resources that they have put at the district's availability to execute these clubs.
Okay. As far as preparedness resources, clubs are greatly helped by making learning resources easily accessible. This needs to be available in all types of media and channels, taking care to make sure that privacy as it relates to member information is protected. A set of resources like these could best be constructed within your district's website or other joint information channels. We particularly like you to include templates for plans. We've got some of those on our website. examples of good club plans. We've also got some of those on our website that we've borrowed with permission. That would include, and you have to be careful because you need to make sure this is anonymous as far as personal contact information if you're posting it publicly. A set of references to other sources of information that may assist and support clubs to be better able to help each other, and recordings of disaster relief videos that your district completes. We have some of those resources available on the DNA RAG website, including webinars that we conducted for zones 30 and 31 last year. So, and I believe now, oh, there they are. You've got it all there, huh, Mike? Now it's time for questions and answers. I saw some great comments in the chat. I can't find them now. There stuff about, I think Mike Stafford suggested you need a really big Pelican box for your information. And the suggestion was made also that if you're going to record stuff to a flash drive, you also store it in the cloud. Someone else suggested emailing the recording to yourself so you'd have it accessible. But are there questions or comments from the group? Please raise your hand if there are. And unmute yourself.
Yes, I have a question. Mike Stafford from Freeport. Is there plans for another READY seminar in the near future?
There are plans, but not that I'm aware of in the near future, Mike. But we need to do this. We need to do this. Bob?
Let me respond a little bit. This is the first time we've done a webinar, and we're intending to reach it globally, and therefore we've got 3 different sessions trying to get the opportunity for people across the globe to participate. READY and Barry and I both participated in putting READY together, and it was Rotarians Emergency Disaster Initiative that put the acronym of READY. Following Katrina, we found that a lot of governors and districts had no plan in place and had no knowledge. That was the concept behind READY. So we're doing this first webinar just to pull people in and tell them who we are and what we would like them to join with us in doing. Our intent is to put 3 additional webinars or sessions together over the next year, including focusing on partnerships. In order to be prepared, you've got to break down the barriers and allow governmental agencies and disaster aid and Shelter Box and Rubicon and Red Crescent. You've got to be participants. And we'd like to get into that. So READY is on the horizon. We won't call it that probably, but yes, we are intending to do that.
So, hi, I'm Laura. I'm part of the Rotary in St. Martin, and we have several. I'm in the Rotary of St. Martin group. And thank you both for doing this and all of you involved. I had 2 questions. One, I kind of put in the chat, and I think you said that you were either considering or working on a new possible app or some kind of medium that would allow us to work on communication issues. And so one question, and I'll just say both my questions and then leave it so that you can answer them. One question has to do with what is the status of that project, and I'm happy to contribute if you need others to participate and help. But we would welcome the opportunity to have some ability to communicate during disasters, or some ability to record that information, whether it's needs assessment or other means of collecting data and then sharing it with the Rotary so that we can assess that critical data both during and then post-disaster. And then the second question, then I'll just leave you to respond to both, is maybe this is what READY was, Bob. Maybe this is what you were talking about. But, you know, I actually come from a crisis response background, and I would welcome the opportunity to continue my own training and growth and professional development in that area. But I also am very aware of my limitations. And so I wonder, those of us who would welcome the chance to be more active and partner the way that you just mentioned, we also shouldn't sometimes. I was here during Irma, and there were only certain things that we could do, whether it was Rotary or others, and the rest we should get out of the way if we are not skilled. So are there opportunities that Rotary could provide for us, for those of us who want to self-fund and come to these trainings, even physically, to meet, so that we can have that expertise, so we could be more productive when the hurricanes or others hit, and we could be better partners. So I'll mute myself.
Laura, you really raised three things. The first is that we talked about preparedness, and we talked about long-term recovery. The one thing we didn't discuss, and it's part of our mission, is the communication angle. And we are there as a communication hub, if you will. That's something I can wrap my poor brain around. But information flowing in and out, there needs to be a way to get communication out to the greater world, and we can help with that. So yes, as far as Michael mentioned, the app that he actually helped develop, utilizing some open app software, was a company called AppSheet, and they've been acquired by Google. But that is such a robust piece of software that we utilize, and we've utilized it for Dorian, we used it for Irma Maria, we used it for the 21 earthquake in Haiti, because it allows us to accumulate a lot of information and be very transparent with how the funds flow in and flow out, and still be able to make sure that there's accountability and transparency in our dealing with the donors that help each of the communities. Bob, do you want more? Because I see that Ryan has his hand up.
Ryan, go ahead. If you'd ask your question, I'll get back to it if we have enough time.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Forgive me for joining a little late with the video. I was actually driving it for the duration of the webinar. And I am a member of the Rotary Club of San Fernando South in Trinidad. And throughout the seminars, one thing has been with me, and the aspect of communications. In a disaster, natural disaster, for example, if we have a disaster, a hurricane, whatever, we will have challenges for electric power. We would definitely have challenges for internet, because the app we need internet coverage for an app to work. I would like to suggest a means of communication that some people probably familiar with: amateur radio. I'm a member of two groups, the Trinidad and Tobago Amateur Radio Society, and also React County Caroni. React, most people would have a little idea about React. It's an international organization that deals with, communications in disasters. And both organizations can provide communications. We can run off the grid. Our means of communication, we use radio waves, we can use satellite communications, we can use basically anything. We can use internet as well too. But in cases where we don't have internet access or no power or anything, we could basically run off the grid, and we could be there providing information for hours. So maybe we could probably look at that, and if it's possible, I would love to be part of this group that looking at doing this initiative there. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. And I've had a little bit of experience with emergency response. So I'd love to be part of it and to contribute towards it.
Rand, we would look forward to your help, and thank you for offering. We're trying to build relations with the amateur radio group, right? There's a Rotary.
Roar is the name of it, yeah.
Roar, right? And that's critical. Just a little detail, our app presumes that most Rotarians won't have internet. So it will work, we will run standalone. And we frequently have situations where Rotarians will drive once a week to somewhere that has a hotspot and resync their data, but they can operate the app on their own, not connected. We assume that they won't be connected most of the time. But look forward to your input and working with you further.
Yeah, Ryan, in 2005, and Barry probably remembers this very well, we deployed a network of satellite phones in the Caribbean because we recognized the fact that the infrastructure, the cell tower system was fragile, being kind. And that worked very well. Very soon, I would expect, and I'm watching on a daily basis, there were a bunch more satellites that went up on Thursday from Vandenberg that are direct to T-Mobile, where you will not have to be, and this is going to be available across the globe, where your cell phone will be able to connect to the Starlink system, and that's going to be a huge game changer for communication, especially in areas that are remote or areas that are distressed by natural disaster. So, I mean, that's a huge thing.
Couple of quick comments back to Laura, if I may, on communication and also on the app. We've been in sessions with individuals in Kenya. Kenya recently has over 400,000 to 500,000 people displaced by virtue of their floods. And we were talking on the communication issue of communication and transparency in what Rotary is doing and coming back as to their projects and what we can do for DNA RAG to assist them. And so that's a very key area of it. We've also been discussing the app and the opportunities that may be afforded by those affected in Kenya and other areas close by of monitoring the projects. To date, I don't believe that we have gone beyond any group that has been outside of a memo of understanding with DNA RAG. In other words, we've maintained that app within our group. We're willing to share and work with the clubs and districts that have requested our assistance. But we haven't, part of it is a legal side to it. And to date, we have not been challenged on the use of the app and its viability in these circumstances. But if we put it out to the general public, then we might experience a question or a problem. And I believe that that's really the reason why we've gone that route. I would like to make mention that on our website, if you have training materials or other items, resources that you feel that others can take advantage of, if you can submit it into us, we'll try and take a look at it and even post it to the website so others can utilize it. We mentioned that we had been working with zones 30 and 31, and Frank Bradshaw is the chair of that advisory committee for going on a year. in training of incoming governors and sitting governors. And there is now a training manual in regard to the organization setup. And it goes from the zone level to the district level to the club level. And it's now, I believe, as of today, it may be posted on our website and available to others to look at. That's still in a little refinement. It's a draft. But if there are others out there and you're willing to share with us, we want to learn from one another. And we need your assistance in all of this. We need to expand, and we've reached out, and rather than just 15 members of a general board sitting together and trying to assist, we're now appointing, and we've appointed about 7 regional and national coordinators. But that's scratching the surface for the global effort. And we need your help. We need you to join DNA RAG. And we need not only joining, dues are nice, but they're minimal. The more important element, and I referred to Barry at the very outset, words are nice, titles are nice, but it's the actions that count. And we hope that you'll get involved and take action as fellow Rotarians do. Ben, I see a hand up.
Real quick, what is the best way to find out if my district and zone have a disaster response committee and get a hold of them?
Frank? Are you in 30?
Is in New Orleans, huh?
Yep.
Yes, I'm actually aware of a district level committee, but in general, is there a list somewhere or a directory that people can go to and find out, oh, okay, there's a district level committee, there's a zone level committee?
I think you're going to be able to see for zone 30 and 31 a complete listing of all the districts that have it and who the contact people are. But I'll send you an email of who the contacts in the general area are right now that you can reach out to. You can reach out to me at any time you want.
Okay.
Jimmy, the blood's running out of your hand.
Yeah, thanks very much. Virtually most of what I was going to contribute, Bob's already indicated, but it was just, in answer to Laura and Ryan, where they said, look, we've got skills that we'd like to be involved in. If you go to the website, there's someone also asked, where can I, get the link? If you go to the website, dna.rag.com, then you can sign up there. But also the opportunities, and Bob said it, the opportunities to be involved at the district level. We circulated this invite to all district governors, district governor-elects. So if you can go back after tonight, if you can go back and say to them, look, the same seminar is on another twice this week. And, if you can encourage your fellow Rotarians, to log in, that would be most helpful, because as Bob said, the more people that know about it, the easier it's going to be for us to expand our reach and increase their impact. Thank you.
Other questions at this point?
I just wanted to do 2 things, Bob. As Jimmy just said, we're doing this webinar over, and it's going to be fresh. It's not recorded, and this has been recorded, but we're not going to play it. We're going to do it on Tuesday at 8 a.m. Eastern time, which will really cover Europe and Africa. And then on Thursday, we'll be on at 11 p.m. Eastern time, which will cover Asia, India, Australia, New Zealand, so that we want to get this message out to as broad an audience as we possibly can. And then the last thing I would ask, if you're not already a member of the Disaster Network of Assistance Rotary Action Group, please go to our website and join us. As Bob said, The dues are not very expensive. It's $25 a year, and we got a special for 5 years for $100. Can't beat that one. So we really are looking for we're looking for people who want to do stuff in their community to help in the event. And we know it's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we do know it's going to happen. So, Bob, final comment. Barry, final comment.
Barry?
No, I think it's great. Good webinar, good information, but what's critical is you take this home and turn it into something with impact. We can talk and talk and talk, but it's up to each and every one of us to go home and put the plan together and make sure your club and your district is prepared. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for your input, Barry. Really appreciate it.
We appreciate each and every one of you being present with us, and we look forward to getting to know each of you. And if you want to go beyond the club or district level to the zone level and to the international level, you have that opportunity. I'm sitting in the middle of cornfields in Illinois, and who would have ever thought that I would wind up dealing with Haiti and Nepal, Sri Lanka, Kenya, Brazil. You have that opportunity, and you can make the difference, but it's up to you to take that first step and say, count me in. So once again, our appreciation for your being with us, and we do look forward to working with you. Have a great one. Thank you.